Hello, my Crusaders for Christ. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a willing brother here, RP, that is going to share his testimony with us, and I'm really grateful and excited. We've been trying to set this up since my husband's retirement.
Wow, yeah, that's been a minute, hasn't it?
That was the first time that we had this conversation, and life has happened and stuff, and God brought us together today, and I'm going to go ahead and allow you to introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Yep, I'm RP. Some people call me Rick. It don't matter, just don't call me late. Anyway, I grew up right off the bat. From 16 years old, I was when drugs came into my life, violence came into my life. At 16 years old, I was already wearing a MC patch with older guys. They didn't know it at the time, but they were basically getting ready to use me to try to do, because they figured I was a juvenile, it would be okay. It's strange how things work, but in my testimony, you'll see different ways that God, not knowing it then, not me knowing that it was God then, but God was saving me then, that He had another plan for me. But
isn't that beautiful how He does that?
It's crazy. At 16, I had a 30-06 sighted in on a man they wanted me to kill. And I didn't know it then, but I know it now. What it was the Holy Spirit was telling me, "No, you're not doing this. No, you're not doing this." And it's like He said, hand them the gun. Tell them to do it.
Yeah, I'm
of
not
course,
doing
they
your
didn't
dirty
want to
work.
do it. So, I put the gun down and went on. Like I say, drugs, alcohol were a part of my life. Early failed marriage turned to violence in the bars every night. And it was, we had a saying back then, we used to joke about it, it's not funny, that a good night wasn't unless, it was a fight and a new wild thing. So, always on motorcycles from the time I was 16. And so then at 21 years old, I started running with another MC. And this one was pretty big. And it was pretty rapid ascent for me, just because of how I was and who I was. And it wasn't long. I was national vice president of that group. And the violence, the shootouts, the drug use, everything, running drugs, because we're talking 70s and 80s, so we're talking running women, drugs, guns, the whole package that went with it. And
may I ask a question? Whenever you were getting into the MCs and stuff, what was it that you were looking for? Was it the brotherhood? Was it a bad family life? Were you just escaping? What?
I think it was a combination of the brotherhood and the fact that I had my high school sweetheart had left, just no, I'm leaving and I'm taking your son and I'm leaving. And back then they could do that. They could just take, you could take a kid and go 3,000 miles away and there was nothing anybody could do about it.
Wow.
And so it was heartache and all that despair, and then you're just thrown into everything with mind-altering stuff anyway. So
right.
There was several occasions that when I didn't know then, but I know now that God was working. I said I've been shot twice, and give up how many times I've been stabbed. Chain belt fights with police. I would fight with cops right down to we didn't care.
Right.
And it was, I had gotten a fight one night in a bar and beat the guy pretty good. The guy went home, got a gun waiting for me to come out, and he shot. It ricocheted off my frame and went into my knee. Drove myself to the hospital, and they fixed that.
God was protecting you.
Oh yeah. That's not even the good one. Then I was down in Florida, because we had people down in Florida, and I was down in Florida. And when I got down there, the brother told me, he said, "You need to get a second." This was before anybody could buy them. You need to get a second chance vest. We got because we were always fighting with other clubs down there. So I didn't want to, but I put it on, and I walked out of the bar that night at about 1 o'clock in the morning. And as soon as I stepped out the door, a band pulled up, and I saw the slide door came open. I saw the flash. It felt like somebody had hit me in the chest with a 10-pound ball. And I thought I was. It took me for a minute to realize you're not dead, because it knocked me down.
Right.
And I got up, and they messed up because they couldn't get across the highway. So that didn't end well for them either. But once again, other than the giant bruise, there was God again with His protective hand saying, I'm not done with you yet. This is not it. And so this went on. I was up on Interstate 81 one time and riding along, and then I woke up in the hospital in Roanoke. So when I came to after 3 days, they told me they found you 100 feet over the side of the guardrail laying in the rocks. And I said, "What's wrong with me?" They said, "Nothing." And I said, nothing. I said, there's nothing broken. They said, no. They said, other than the teeth of the ET that you knocked out when at some point, during your delirium. And I said, oh. So I said, what about the bike? We don't know anything about the bike.
What bike? Yeah.
Right. But nothing was broken, not even a scratch, 100 feet. And I got home.
And rocks.
Yeah. The big rocks.
Yeah.
I got home a couple of weeks ago. I was living in Virginia Beach then, and a state trooper came to my house and he said, slept up there at night, and I'm slipping around the other side of the vehicles looking, because I don't know, I was in a sordid life then. And he's screaming, no, we've been trying to find you just since you left the hospital. I don't know. And he came and told me that a lady conscience had bothered her, so she had stopped. She had witnessed a van come up behind me. The doors came open, and they stuck a long pipe out the back of the doors and caught me right in the back of the head. Right, took me over the side of the interstate,
which is how you ended up.
Yeah. She said the bike went in the air and me went in the air, way up. She said she couldn't believe it. She stopped way ahead. She said, and then she saw a girl get out of the van and run down over the thing to me, which made sense because I had a bunch of money in one pocket and a bunch of money in the other. I was a drug dealer.
Right.
And some of that was gone, right? And then she started backing up. So they decided it was time to get her. And I asked the officer, I said, who owns the van? Is it registered to a girl or to a man? Because I had just seen him in the truck stop. I knew it was. Yeah. And he goes, it was registered to a girl. I said, well, then that this is not her doing. I said, so just give me the address. Well, he wouldn't do that. No. But once again, there you are again.
That you have an angel that drives by and sees this, right? Because you have no recollection
No recollection at all. And there you are again. I should be. So there's 3 instances there that I should have been dead, should have been gone. So it was like, it continued.
How old were you at
that time? Yeah. I was probably about 25.
So you've been in this life since 16. I've been in. Now you're 25.
That was probably mid-20s. And then, so things had started. There was little telltale signs that things were coming unraveling with, I'll call it an organization, but with things. And then, so in 1980, I first got locked up in 1980, but that was just a short one. That was a 16-month stay.
And how old were you?
How old was I then? 20. I can't remember.
Okay, so this is in between okay. Yeah, so this is your 20s. First time getting locked up.
Early 20s, yeah. So then while I was on parole for that and still dealing drugs.
Right. Because no other life.
I know no other life. Right. I went to a boy's house that owed me money and pistol whipped him and put the gun to his head and was going to kill him, and then told him that, you're not worth a 19-cent bullet. So I shot the gun right beside his ear, went through the wall. Unbeknownst to me, his sister had come up and peeked in the door and went and called the law.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
So I came out. It was dead of winter, and I was in this big monster truck I had, and I seen something out of the corner of my eye. So I threw the gun to my buddy who was in the truck, and I said, wipe it down and get the bullets out, right? And then they came all around the corners, and so I beat one cop up, and then a number of them got there, and that was the end of that.
Right.
So they had charged me with a malicious wounding, intent to kill, discharging a firearm in a public dwelling, all this, right?
And then assault to an officer, probably, something like that.
Officer. Yeah. I laughed at him because that's the kind of attitude I had.
Right.
And I went down and I actually bonded out. They couldn't understand that. I gave them a lot of money, bonded out.
Is it fair to say that in the club that you were in, these kind of things were like accolades, like kudos, like that made you stronger and cooler?
And so it was, my parole officer called me and when he pulled it up on the computer and he said, oh, you're going back. I said, yeah, but you know what? The main sentence is over. I got a 1-year special parole. I don't care. And I says, but I really didn't do it. He goes, oh yeah, we'll see. So when I went to court, needless to say, that man didn't show up or the witness didn't show up. So they threw it out.
God shot again.
So, but federal parole officers, they don't care. They lock you up anyway. They said it upon subject. I said, okay. So I came out again. I was at a full run. As soon as I came out again, didn't care.
How long were you locked up?
That was just 1 year because all I had left.
Okay, all right.
So it was 1987, and an indictment came down for 16 people on it, and including my wife of that time, and she was the only female involved. So this was 146 counts.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, a tremendous. I was charged with a lot.
Now were these? So everything from drugs
RICO.
to
This was racketeering, influence, corrupt organizations, carrying on a criminal continue. Everything you could be charged with, just about in that type of life.
They threw the book at you.
That was, and so I was sitting in jail. And knew it. And what was so funny is I had been out of the drug business now for about a year or so. I thought I was giving it up.
Yeah. Gonna make a turnaround.
Yep.
Gonna clean yourself
living in the
up.
country, and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And then this happened. So while I was in jail, I was in Chesapeake jail at the time.
Okay.
And while I was in jail, there was a man that used to come in there, and he was an older man. I was 33 then, and he used to come in there, and every day he would come in and he said, "Does anybody, want to hear about Jesus?" And there was about 10 people on the range, and they would all yell at him and scream at him.
Is this the first time that someone had brought Jesus to you, or while you were in prison, it never got brought up?
Right.
Okay.
So, as a kid, I went to Sunday school, but I'll tell you what happened there. I didn't get it. So it was funny. So I didn't know it again, but I'm laying there, and he came in one day, and just like we're sitting here, get up, you go listen, you shut them up. Oh yeah, all the hair stood up on my head, all the hair stood up on the back of my neck. So I got up, and you can see pictures on my Facebook. I was 230 pounds then, nobody to be messed with.
Yeah.
And I walked out there and looked at all of them. I said, "Shut your mouths. I want to hear what this guy's got to say." So I went down to the end of the range. And I said, "So tell me about your Jesus." And he started telling me. I said, "Do you have any idea?" I said, "Listen, when I went to Sunday school, they said if you broke the 10 Commandments, you were lost." And he goes, "Well, I don't know what Sunday school you went to, but that's wrong." He goes, "It's by grace we're saved." And I said, "So you're saying that all this is forgiven if I accept Jesus?" He goes, "That's exactly what I'm saying."
But you don't know what I did. You don't know who I was, right?
I'm like, "But do you realize what they got me charged with?" He goes, "It doesn't matter."
Jesus knows.
He said, "Jesus knows." He goes, just believe in him and believe that he sent his son to die for you." And I said, "You know what?" I says, "Nothing else has worked in my life." I said, "I definitely don't seem to have control of it." So I accepted Jesus that day before we left. And what I felt, because I had guys, when he left, "Oh, what, did you see a big key with him?" I said, "No." I said, "But you know what? I do feel this peace. I feel like that now whatever's going to happen, I can roll with it."
Yeah.
And I had guys in there, because guys were hanging up in there all the time. They couldn't take the time they were getting ready to get. So, but to me, it was just like, I'm all right. Whatever they do is going to be fine. I got this peace walking with me now, and it was like, so I felt that, and it was just like, wow. So I sat down and I started reading the Bible. And I read it from front to back, I don't know how many times. And the Old Testament, it's tough.
It is tough,
Tough.
I'm struggling with Deuteronomy and the laws of Moses.
And it's tough, but I was like, I kept reading it, and I read it, and so then I started praying, and so then when I ended up getting sentenced, several months later.
That's how long you got?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could have had hundreds of years, but as he was, everybody pled guilty, right? And as he was reading off the stuff, I noticed that the judge kept running everything concurrent with the 20 he had given me for the RICO Act. So by the time he got done, he had given me 35 years, $750,000 in fines and restitution, and special parole for life.
Wow.
So I was sitting there and I was like, okay, well, you got this, right?
Yeah.
Because
you're 33.
33.
Yeah, so you're looking at 66
So this is tough. Well, they still had the old law back then, so we were still parolable.
Okay.
But you had to do at least 10 with the feds. Anything over 30 had to do 10.
Okay.
So
still a good portion of your life.
Oh,
right?
yeah. So they sent me, actually there were 16 of us.
Okay.
I was the only one they sent to the penitentiary. Everybody else they sent to mediums, lows, minimums. They sent me to the death house. They sent me to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. All those places were built in the 30s during the Depression. Yeah. They're built like old castles. Wow. So there's like an old cloud hanging over, it seems like.
Yeah.
They're demonic. I thought I'd seen a lot on the street. I saw 6 killings there within the first 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
Because there was no death penalty for anything federal then. That's changed now. But you were just, as the old convicts would say, "I'd kill you. It's just a trip to McDonald's to get lunch when I go to court."
Wow.
And when I got there, I was in the A&O, and I asked the counsel, I said, "What kind of prison industry to have here?" And he was a Puerto Rican fellow. It was so funny. He looked at me, he goes, "They make knives." And I started laughing, right? And I said, "They do what?" He goes, "It's a metal factory." He goes, "And they're brilliant thinking, and they make knives." He goes, "Everybody here has a sword." And I was like, "Well, okay, I got you." And he was right.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Everybody had a sword there, because they made the metal furniture for all the military.
Okay.
And all the VAs and all that stuff. So you had dyes, and so dye shops, everything. I worked in the dye shop. I watched them.
That's
right?
crazy to think.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Many roads on this highway, many rivers to cross. Sometimes you feel like you can fly away. Sometimes you get lost. Sometimes in the dark of night, you feel like it's too much. We tell ourselves we gotta hold on. Just keep your eye on the light. Jesus is calling your name. You know He wants to save you. His love is all that remains the same. That's what it's all coming to.